Good evening. My first notation tonight is, would anyone like to get near Roger? I think he's there for the all by himself tonight. So, I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you would all please join the City Council in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next order of business is public comment. So first I'll ask Mr. Scheinman from the school board to come up and talk to us about the school board.
Yeah, Wednesday we have a joint meeting, just reminding council people who can come to it. 7 o'clock, it was originally going to be, I think at 5:30 or something like that. Anyway, it's at 7 o'clock. There's a 6:15 finance meeting for that for the school board. See you then.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Coleman. Barbara Coleman, 45B Stockman Avenue.
Yes.
Well, we don't have anybody taking minutes, so.
Oh, okay. Mayor, council,
Ma'am.
members of the public and department heads, first, I want to thank everyone, particularly Emily, for helping to redesign the website. I know it's a work in progress, but it is a much improvement of what we have seen in the past, and we can begin to see things and find things. Second, I do owe an apology to the deputy mayor. There was a response to my question that evening of March the 4th, but it was supposed to be directed to council, but it was directed to me, so I didn't read it as a council response and me getting a copy. So it was kind of in reverse. So I apologize for that. And I also like the fact that the notice is also coming out of online as well as through the email, holding to a higher font standard as well. I would love to see more departments meet the criteria of what Emily is doing in those postings, because then we would be able to read their materials much easier. And I understand budget books and stuff like that you're never going to be able to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First, Mr. Harkins. Well, he's spoken once. We'll let him speak again after you. So if I'd like to just ask John Harkins of 4 Christopher
Terrace.
Terrace.
Thank you.
Is that terrace or terrorist?
Terrace.
Please, sir, speak. I'm sorry to.
Members of the council. Just a couple of concerns we've had long-standing. One is the senior program has been in progress with respect to resolving those issues. Also, the TIF concerning Main Street. I'm having a little bit of trouble following it. We got a TIF 217 in the book, 218, and the approval was in August of 219. And very confusing, and I think we have some issues there in which can lead to some liabilities, not only for the current situation between both the senior program and the TIF, but also future programs. And also I wanted, there was in the budget a property acquisition. I don't recall that having come out of a committee or reported on. I'd like to know what that is also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The property acquisition you're referring to is what?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know. Okay, great. So next up, Mr. Scheinman again.
When there's good news, I like to say, you probably already know, the insurance rates for next year
Oh, dental insurance.
are not going up, and that's amazing, because we had a considerable amount of money. It's a $200,000 plus difference, and that's going to be discussed Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to run through 3 announcements quickly. There will be a joint City Council and School Board meeting on Wednesday, the 10th at 7 o'clock here. Second is our next meeting will be a workshop on Tuesday, April 16th, recognizing the April 15th Patriots' Day holiday. And the third is that it's a very sad announcement. A longtime city councilor representing Ward 1, David Tripp, he had run for mayor a couple of times, has passed away. So next up on the agenda is Water Resource Recovery Department budget presentation. Mr. Sutherland, do you want to kick that off? With a kick.
Actually, I'm just going to pass it on to Howard. I've
There you
asked
go.
all the department heads who are presenting tonight to be at the table.
Thank you very much. And let me recognize, in addition to Mr. Carter of Water Resource Recovery, and Mr. Lambert of Code Enforcement, and Mr. Summers of Parks and Rec, and Ms. Salas of the Finance Department. We also have Mr. Don, oh my heavens. No, or David Toomey is here, yes, David Toomey from Code Enforcement. And the Facilities Director, Don Roth. Why can't I remember that? Don Roth, and Deputy Chief Jack Clements, and Communications Director Emily Roy. So, Mr. Carter, take it away.
Would you want me to sit down, or would you rather have me at the podium?
As long as we can hear you, that's
All right.
wherever you're comfortable.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Before I get started, I would like to do an energy budget presentation right after this, bringing up some concerns that Councilor Copeland brought up a few weeks ago, so I made another little small PowerPoint for that, if that's okay with you folks. I'll roll right into it. Okay, before we get started, just let you know, this will be a no budget increase. This follows a long-standing tradition that I've been doing for a number of years, is trying to go 1 year without an increase, then roll the CPI the following year. So this year happens to be no increase. Oh, this one. There we go. All right, so some of the things to highlight this year, we have brought in the positions that we fund at Public Works, shown into our org chart. We've actually been funding these for a number of years, but I think this helps clarify a few things. We do fund half of the Public Works Deputy Director position, the utility foreman position. Now, that utility foreman actually does a lot of the sewer work, does a lot of the catch basin work. An equipment operator, that's the gentleman you see driving around the big vac truck that we have out around, and we also fund the tri-community operator. Now, that's really about a third of a position. That's a position that we share with Biddeford and Old Orchard. So that currently gives us a full-time equivalent of about 12. I am proposing to add a new position. This will actually be the first new position in over 20 years. We did drop a position about 4 years ago, a half a position, but now this one is looking to fund an industrial compliance manager. What's happening now, our industrial pre-treatment program is getting to such that it's getting hard to keep up with it. We have 80,000 gallons a day come out of General Dynamics. We have Cape Seafood. We got Ready Seafood coming in. We got Poland Springs. We got Zajac. We got Maine, the medical place up there in Millbrook. So a number of things, not counting the other ones we license, like Krispy Kreme. So out of 329 establishments, I'd like this person to go around, visit them, be the face of the city, at least for us. That's something that we haven't been able to do in the past. and possibly do some outreach for water quality things, go out to the schools and those type of things, if there's any time allowed. I'd love to do that. And maybe interface as needed with the Corridor Commission or the Sauk River Collaborative if that type of thing comes up. That will not change our rate for funding that position. But I think most of you know some of our responsibilities, of course, are plant operation and maintenance, pump station operation and maintenance. We have 31 of them out around the city. The sanitary sewer infrastructure, the CSO program, I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. Customer service, which is ongoing every day, financial operations, and now we're going to roll in a higher industrial compliance. If you guys have any questions, just stop me at any time. I'll go over them. Some of the major accomplishments that we've had this past year was rehabilitation of the Lincoln Street sewer main. I think you all saw that all last summer. We actually closed another CSO structure this year down on Main Street, down by Saco House of Pizza. We now have sewer on the other side of Route 5, on the other side of the Turnpike. That was with the Precious Hidden Estates pump station, and there was a turnpike boring on that one. We put another generator in down at the Goose Fair pump station. That's down by Bryce Ingraham's campground. Upgraded the Windy Point pump station. We're just putting the finishing touches on that. We'll be putting some loam and shrubs in here in the next few months. The Route 1 sewer extension is all designed. It's out to bid. Actually, Grondin has won that bid, R.J. Grondin, and they will be starting doing test pits on that project next week. You'll probably see some signs out there. Another big one is we're doing a study on an effluent pump station, simply because in a high tide now, we're backing up through the plant. As the sea level comes up, we're going to be forced to pump it out. A little bit of wet weather treatment improvements and a climate adaptation plan, and that's how to deal with sea level rise into the future. And we also replaced our heating system down at the plant. A couple things that we have coming up this year is we're going to rebuild the Hillview 2 pump station. As everything gets about 20 years old, we just go through, just redo the whole darn thing. We're looking to install the plant water system. That was something we were going to try to start this year. It's getting so our water bill is getting pretty expensive, so we're going to start recirculating some of our water. We're going to reline a biosolids holding tank. We're starting to get some sulfide to eat away at the concrete. So with that, as we draw our air out, we're going to have to upgrade our odor control system along with that. I'm going to need another emergency bypass pump. I've put that in the budget. The one we have now is like 30 years old. It's still running, but it's probably time to have something else. I'm going to come at you folks this summer probably with, we're going to try to rewrite Chapter 176 of the sewer ordinance. That's getting long in the tooth. It's about 30 years old, so we're starting to work on that. We're going to rehabilitate the industrial park cross-country line. That runs behind Saco Sport and Fitness, goes all the way out to the industrial park pump station by the railroad tracks. That's got a lot of I&I infiltration in its old clay pipe, and some of its ductile is starting to show its age. The Market Street sewer separation, that'll be happening later in the summer, because we've actually pulled Grondin off that. They have them do the Route 1 project first, and they're going to move back out there. The sewer extension I just talked about. We should have our results of our engineering study on the effluent pump station, wet weather improvements, I'd say in June or July. I think we're going to have to get together as a group and talk about what we want to do about that. Biosolids disposal, that's a new one. If you guys have probably heard of PFOS and PFAS in the news, that one's really set the treatment group back a little bit, because now we're building up these biosolids through the solids generators, and we really can't get rid of them right now until we work around these new regulations. We've requested a meeting with the governor. I know Marston's been trying to do some outreach for the Maine Municipal Association, LPC, so we're attacking this on a few fronts, but it's one you got to step careful with, because the DEP's kind of in a box here. They don't really want to backslide, but they have to put some science behind some things. And we're going to look for industrial outreach to the area businesses, as I talked a little bit earlier. I did talk about CSOs earlier. This is just a chart you folks might find interesting. I don't know if you can see it. But in the last 10 years, this shows the amount of monies that have been spent on the watersheds around the state of Maine. Most of these are around service centers, you know, the big ones, Lewiston, Auburn, Biddeford, Saco, those type of things, Bangor, Brewer. You can see on the Saco River back in 2008, there was actually 416 million gallons of untreated water discharged to the Saco River. What that is, if you folks know about CSOs, it's when all the catch basins go into the sanitary system, it overcomes the treatment plant as a direct discharge. Now, as in 2017, that was kind of a dry year, but that was brought down to just under 50,000. To the tune of, on that river watershed, there was over $10 million spent. I think a lot of that was right from the city of Saco. Because of to date, what have we spent? We spent almost 15 million on CSOs already as a community. But out of that 49 million, Saco discharged 300,000. The rest of that actually belonged to the city of Biddeford. So I think that's something you folks should be proud of. We're well on our way to getting there. Hopefully the next few years we'll cross over that hump. And you know, love them or hate them, the impact fees have had a big part of getting that done. That and a lot of work being done in-house to boot. And then let's go to the budget summary. Pretty easy pie chart, if there's any questions on that or not. We continue to be one of the lowest sewer user rates in the state, so that's still working. So this year, actually, we're going to end up with a little bit of a surplus. We've had a few things break our way last year. We were budgeting well over $70,000 for a year for the new vac truck we bought. The bids come in favorable. We did a little bit of trading, and we got that down. Glennis did some good work. We got that down to $49,000 instead of $70,000, so that's helped a bit. And we've shifted some of those bond payments over to the TIF, which has helped too for the Route 1 sewer bond. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay, one quick question for me. On your pie chart,
Yeah, let me go back.
you have remain cat.
Oh, you know what that is?
Nope.
That's probably,
my question.
Glennis can probably answer it better, but that's probably, we fund depreciation. That's
Okay.
probably a big chunk of that. It's
Is that
like
what-
289,000 just for depreciation.
I don't understand what the words imply. What, remain cat?
Oh,
Remaining categories. So
Yeah.
it's a lumping of everything
Yeah.
else. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions of Mr. Carter to my left? Councilor Copeland?
Thank you for your presentation. Obviously, you've
Oh, my
kept the
pleasure.
prices down, and that is really important to the taxpayers of Saco. I want to appreciate that right off. I did have one quick question. A new heating system,
Yeah.
solar?
No, what that is, we actually did the geothermal thing. It didn't quite work out with our effluent, so what we did, we put in propane for now, look into the future, because we can always have Unitil run gas down, but we're looking for some new technologies. I'm thinking hydrogen isn't that far away. So hopefully we're working with a few companies, or one company that's, and a few of you know about it, is actually taking wastewater and turning it into hydrogen.
Nice.
So more of that to come within the next few months.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you want to clarify your use of hydrogen? You expect to be able to,
Well, we're hoping sometime. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, or it'll be next week, or it'll be 5 years.
Yeah.
There's technologies out there that is
It is.
converting salt water into hydrogen.
Yep.
And now we're working with a company that's actually taking our effluent and turning it into hydrogen. So it looks pretty promising.
Yeah.
That would be a game changer for anybody that's not on the coast, because there's wastewater plants throughout the country.
yeah. So any other questions to my left? Any questions to my right? Thank you very much, Mr. Carter.
Oh, you're very
Next
welcome.
up is IT.
Well, actually, we're going to go right into
Oh, we're
the...
going to, excuse me, we're going to go into your next
Yeah,
presentation.
if I can figure out how to get there.
Did you say hydrogen?
Okay.
Oh, energy and sustainability.
Thank you.
Okay.
Some questions were asked last week. We figured
Yeah.
we'd tackle this one while Howard's here.
Yeah, so
Since
I
he
just.
chairs it.
Yeah, I made this up last week. Sorry.
Are we actually looking at a budget preparation that is in the book, in the budget book? No?
Well, a lot of it's funded. I'll go through the funding on this. You can see some of it. I don't know if it's in
Okay.
the budget book
Yep.
or not.
So in terms of the energy fund, I don't have a preliminary number that's in the budget book, but Howard was the energy committee got a little bit more detail, and the number came up a little bit. So it's going to be a little higher. And that's an adjustment that we'll make when you receive the final approved budget books at the end of this process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well,
Is there something we can follow along now, or?
Is there anything we can follow, or is just?
oh yeah, I'm gonna bring it up, yeah.
No, but I mean, is there anything in the book?
Oh, I don't think there's
There's a
anything in the
fund.
book. All we have is this that I just made last week.
So this is, all we have is the slideshow,
Right, and
and you're
No,
going to.
it's, I just found it, Councilman Thorne.
it's probably
showed-
online by now.
online,
Yeah,
so-
it's online by now.
I was just
Okay.
going to ask, is
All right,
it,
yeah.
is it online?
Yeah, I think Emily put it on today, yeah.
Yep, okay.
The energy bond, which is the primary funding mechanism too for the energy committee, is also on page 143 of your budget books, if
Yeah.
you want to take a look there.
I'm sorry, page which?
143.
143, thank you. And thank you, Councilors Minthorn and Copeland.
Yeah. So basically, I've listed what we have for committee members right now. Some are always coming and going, and of course, Councilor Johnston is our council rep on the committee. We typically meet the first Wednesday of every month at 9 o'clock. And a lot of these names, most of you will recognize. Some are city staff, some are citizens. So our goals for 2020 is to enhance the public outreach, enabling residents and businesses to learn about energy efficiency improvements and alternative energy sources, whether that's promoting what we're doing through the newsletter or social media, or we may go back to what we did a few years ago. We actually held an energy seminar at the train station a number of years ago. Maybe that's something to look at again. Another thing we want to start doing is reviewing some of the city ordinances and any draft recommendations that come across to make sure that they have some visionary land use priorities and energy improvements and help incentivize some of those things. And of course, what we've always been doing is trying to invest in city infrastructure with the goal of reducing carbon emissions and improving efficiencies. Any questions on that? Hearing none. Here's a couple projects that we talked over last week. First one being NG Software. This was brought to us by Hannaford Supermarkets. This is something they use that was brought to them from the Food King back when they were acquired. Basically, all of their software, all of their utility bills is handled by NG. And we were thinking about doing that for our case. Like, we've got 80 CMP bills or something like that. They would just handle all of those, pay those, and if there's any discrepancy in those numbers, they get right back to you. They could send me an email, or Glennis, or Dick, or Ryan, whoever's department's involved, and what's off. I think it would free up some of our work upstairs. It would actually work on propane or whatever utility we wanted to. Hannaford's paying like $4 a bill. We don't know if we'd get that same rate or not. We're trying to schedule a call with them, with Glennis and Dorr and a few of us to go over it. If that was the case and we just did the CMP bills, if you did 80 times 4 times $4 a piece, you're looking at $320 a month, or just under $5,000 a year. I think we found one error in one utility bill just recently that would have paid for that right there. I think there's some cost savings. Solar panels on the new Public Works facility, this is more of a placeholder. I think if we look at that, that might be better off as a private-public partnership. That's what most of the municipalities do. You buy that out after a while. Think of investing in a polymer preheating system down at the plant. What polymer does, it's a creamy white liquid. It's a flocculant. You mix it with water with your biosolids and your sludge, and it helps it flocculate. What we have found that on one particular unit, we're spending about $800 a month on polymer in the summer, but in the winter times, we're spending like $1,800 a month, and it's mostly because the incoming water is colder. So we're looking to preheat that and probably save $4,000 or $5,000 a year right there. That's one thing we may try, look at the hydrogen type thing with. Street light conversions, we did take a little bit of a wait and see on that one earlier. We were a proponent and helped change the CMP, we could buy the lights back from CMPs a number of years ago, and that was a legislative directive. But now we've let Scarborough and a few others go out there to lead and find out where all the potholes are in there. So it's probably getting close to time that we do a feasibility study and see if it's time to move. Last I knew, we were paying like $265,000 a year in rent and streetlights. Train station turbine pad repurposing, that's a little ad hoc committee that Nathan's gonna lead the charge on. That again, that may be more of a placeholder. That's probably something that could be funded out of the downtown TIF. Once that group figures out what really wants to happen there, that may be a community outreach project. Not sure how Nathan wants to handle that one yet. And the last thing that was brought up is parking lights out at Foss Road. I guess when the soccer's getting over, it's getting kind of dark, so Ryan wants some lights out there. Pat has put a few of these solar lights around, and I guess they work phenomenal, so I think that's something that would be a good use of some of our money. Here's a budget summary I've put together. The energy bond fund balance, that's the bond that was passed back in November of 2015. That has a fund balance of almost $300,000 in it. It shouldn't be quite that high, but it is. Energy efficiency upgrades, that's what we've been funding all our projects out of. You guys have been good enough to put $25,000 a year into that out of the capital program. About 2 years ago, we switched that down to $18,750 because so much of the work we were doing, the LED upgrades, Efficiency Maine was giving us back a lot of the money, so we bumped that down. But now what I'm hearing, Pat's telling me that that's actually been cut in half. The capital plan's been cut in half from what I understand, whether to meet directive, I'm not sure how that works, but our projected revenue this year is $9,375. So that's where we propose to take some of those monies.
Okay, any questions to my left? Seeing none, questions to my right? Oh, Councilor Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment on solar energy. I think that's awesome.
Oh yeah, we want to keep moving fiscally, make sure it's worth the bang for the buck, but yes, we're looking at all of those things. I think in the public works facility should be a great spot to try it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the feasibility study on the LEDs, Councilor Copeland?
Just wanted to ask about that, the NG software. Have you talked to the IT department about that here?
No, not yet. We haven't looked at that. That's probably going to take an RFP process and everything. This is just trying to get something together for a budget, Holden. but-
Okay.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely roll IT into that.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Sutherland?
So again, this is a little bit new to the council. We haven't done an approach like this before. You look at section 6 of the budget book. We've identified areas where we're looking to spend money in fiscal year 20 and essentially budgeting it. So the council is fully aware of what we're looking to spend out of these other funds that are in your budget book. And this is an opportunity to talk about, so I know Howard and the committee met after we had thrown $50,000 of expenditures down in here. The committee met last week and identified $70,000. So one of Glennis's memo updates, which is on the budget website, talks a little bit about that. The fact that they're added another $20,000 they're looking to spend in fiscal year 2020. Our goal is to be as transparent and open about these other funds and what we as staff anticipate to utilize based on the conversations that the committees have and the conversations that the departments have related to the other funds that they're responsible for.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps to clarify this piece of it and the other items that we will talk about prior to the public hearing component on the 29th.
Yeah.
Great. And so is this also going to be something on the 29th?
No, we won't
No.
bring this back
So
up.
this
unless
is not
there's-
going to come back?
There's
No,
questions for council.
Yeah.
If council has additional questions as we go forward, they're welcome to submit those or send them to us, and we'll make sure that they get answered as part of this process.
Yeah, it just,
Okay, great. Thank
Councilor
you.
Copeland brought it up, what do we spend? I said, well, let's try to put something together.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right, so now, Mr. Pinero? Is that true, Mr. Sutherland?
Yes.
Mr. Pinero? IT is next, according to the agenda.
You driving?
Mind if I stand? I like to stand when I talk, so keeps me short. Can bend.
As you please, Mr. Pinero.
Thank you. All right, so IT department. All right, so first we have 3 total employees. First, our network engineer, Joe Lambert. He's currently working towards a Cisco Certified Network Engineer certification. He started with the City of Saco in 2014 as an intern, moved into a technician role, and is now currently the one that designs our network. The next is Henry Pelletier. He's our systems engineer. He's working towards a Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate cert, as well as a Certified Ethical Hacker certification. And Henry started with us in February 2018, so he's been here just over a year now. So our vision, drive necessary and effective IT capabilities for improved operations and collaboration across the city. And our mission is to create an interconnected and informed city through the prioritized, secure, and innovative application of IT resources. You can see our department responsibilities. I'll just move on from that. Thank you. So major functions are governance, infrastructure, functionality. Governance is is where we enact the rules and how users and teams can use the city's technology and what you can use it for. Our infrastructure is the hardware, network, virtual environments necessary to make an IT system function according to established needs and systems size. So that's our virtual can increase that size quite a bit. And then we have our functionality, which is the administration and maintenance of applications and hardware, as well as securing and storage of electronic data. Thank you. All right, so major accomplishments. My team has done some great things this year. IT worked on migrating applications and servers this year, moving email and enterprise resource planning software to the cloud, and migrating our computer-aided dispatch, records management software, vision appraisal database. We replaced the server that stores our in-car police videos. We kept pushing for the use of SharePoint and features that are provided in our Office 365 subscriptions. That's taking off a little bit. We want to see it kind of ramp up quite a bit more. And as you can see, we're using Office 365 here as well as SharePoint. Joe has done an amazing job enhancing our wireless and wired network infrastructure. He completely rebuilt our network so that it is 100% CJIS compliance. CJIS is a criminal justice information system. So it's a requirement for us to connect for the PD to connect to the federal database. We've implemented a mobile device management, which is a tool that Henry learned about while at a trade show in Austin, Texas. Henry was able to get the company to let us beta test this, as well as earn the city credits towards future deployments. So right now we're at a zero cost for our MDM, and we see that we probably won't have any cost in the future for about a year or so. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my place. We have deployed or in talks with a hyper-converged infrastructure vendors. So we're still vetting a couple of the vendors that exist for this type of infrastructure. We want to ensure that we're getting what we need as well as what will last us for the next 6 years. The equipment will last about that time, so we want to make sure that we're not buying additional pieces in the future. The implementation of the HCI should cut the amount of time it takes for us to recover from a disaster from 3 days, roughly, to a couple hours to get everything back up and running, as well as save the city long-term in hardware and other licensing costs. So that cuts our management software, which is extremely expensive, down to zero because we're going to be using an open source KVM solution. We pushed and pushed and pushed on phishing attempts. Those campaigns are ongoing and will continue to be ongoing for the foreseeable future. We have been testing new backup AV, security application vendors, and using tools and training I have received to uncover security vulnerabilities, and we're able to mitigate a lot of those vulnerabilities through the use of open source software. IT has worked and created a City of Saco cyber incident response kit. So this kit allows us to, when an incident happens, we kind of have a plan in place of what we're going to do, pull a forensics image of it, and analyze what happened on the PC. We'll be able to see root cause and all that fun stuff. We replaced all the copiers and printers, and finally we were able to hold user trainings, which included an age-friendly security training. We did employee security training, many SharePoint classes, and an Outlook training. I would like to thank Joe and Henry for an exceptional job. They continue to improve in their roles, and I'm proud to work with them. So if you guys see them, give them a heads up, say thank you. They do a great job. All right, so vendors, here's all, no, this is about 50% of the vendors that we use. Not everybody's up there, but we're definitely, we have a lot. You can move on, Emily. All right, so RAD updates. Blanket was a piece of software that we were going to use to blank out the computers in the cars. The solution was not the best solution for us, so we decided to mail those products back to, I believe they went to South Africa. So we're actively looking for another solution for that. We didn't pay anything for the blankets this year yet, so we still have that funding available when we do find the right solution. So good thing we have free trials. iWorks, we're adding additional modules. Online permitting, planning, and license should be fully implemented by the end of the fiscal year. Nessus, which is our vulnerability scanning, this is the tool we used as well as OpenVAS, which were both vulnerability systems, to find what was going on our network.
Before you go any further.
Yes.
I just want to point out, iWorks, we're in the process of updating that now, and that will really tie in all of the departments. So if a citizen has a request, they can submit it online, and all of the departments who need to see it, touch it, feel it, will have an opportunity to do that. So it should speed up some of our processes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really proud of the team pulling together to figure this one out. So just wanted to put a plug in.
All right, so our major challenge is always going to be a security threat. Really, it's my primary focus and has been for the last 2 years. We continue to improve to make sure our security posture is at a high level, but as we make it a high level, it becomes a low level because new things come out every day. So that's what we gotta do. Innovation and digital transformation. As we continue to grow and add new capabilities, users and citizens need to be kept up to speed on changing and evolving services. You can look at this by saying we have become heavily involved in social media this year. Our website has changed. All kinds of things are changing, so we've got to figure out how to get people involved in using this software. Interoperability, this is that establishing that workflow and eliminating those silos. This is where that iWorks product will come in play. Balancing security and accessibility is a delicate thing. I'm constantly tweaking things that we're doing. We're always looking at what emails are coming in, what we're blocking, and what we're willing to allow to come through. Many of the rules have stayed the same. We've actually been adding quite a bit of rules lately. So, If you guys get spam or things that you want to get blocked, let us know. All right, and then merging old with the new. Records and retention has been a big push. We offer the digital version, but departments and the clerks are the ones that must know which documents stay forever and which ones go away. We're just there to provide the storage and ensure that the backup is ready if in the event of a disaster. Emily is also working on an improved ways for data access on the city's website, and I think that has the changes that she made have really improved navigation as well as the ability to find things on our website, so kudos. All right. So budget summary. So what we've done, you guys see this massive decrease. So software costs have been redistributed to departments to better understand the full department cost, as well as to keep IT from having to fund the increases in the budgets. So typically what was happening in the past is every time a piece of software, we had about $260,000 total software cost. Every percentage that those go up, which they typically do, any piece of software, you're never going to pay the consistent price of it through 10 years, 15 years. As those kind of went up, IT was funding the increase, which really didn't leave us any place to add or subtract or improve internally. So we've stripped those costs as well, and I think that was about 180,000-ish, 184. We've stripped those costs, and those are now in the departments. The funding from my department went to those departments, so there's no increase in their total budget. Well, there's an increase to their budget, but there's no dollar amount that has to be increased. I should have brought some water. All right, did I have anything else up there? I'm not sure. Oh, printers and copiers also, the lease for that, Glennis, went into the capital program. So it was another $22,000 that came out of the IT budget, went into the capital plan. It is a lease, so it kind of belongs there. All right, so same thing as the pie. So let's just roll right into the actual RADs, if you don't mind. So this is the big RAD, and probably the one that I would really push for the most. And this is the Cybersecurity Program Manager. The time it takes for us to deal with all of the security threats we face has become daunting. It's a task that, we have 130 computers or so, 13 servers, 7 hosts, 30-ish switches, 25 access points, and all of them are making logs, and all of them are telling us things that are going on. And it's really difficult to keep up with the amount of information that we're getting and digesting it, as well as trying to steer the department, or Joe's trying to engineer some additional thing on our network, or Henry's trying to build up a server. Expenses, salary, ongoing, 115, and that includes the fringe benefits, correct, Glennis? So that's fringe benefits as well. And then equipment, which are one-time-ish, and I say ish because licensing is a one-time, but initially there could be additional licensing that we need to buy for this person year over year. So it's kind of undetermined at this moment. It probably would be best for whatever person comes in, if they're very familiar with a certain product. If it's open source, great, we'll use it, no cost. If it's a little bit of a cost, then we may have to absorb that next fiscal year. So here's the list of things that this person would be doing. A lot of this is things that I've taken on by myself to take care of, but it's adding a lot of additional hours on top of what I'm trying to do already. But it also adds, it's a lot of additional things that we just can't service. There aren't enough hours in the day for us to keep up with all of these things. So if you'd like, I can go over all of those, but I'm assuming we probably don't. Anybody want?
We can cover that in the questions after you've done
We
the
could,
presentation.
absolutely. So is the threat really present? Yes, 30 attempts on boundary protection daily. 15 attempts to send malicious emails to users daily. In 1 month, we had 40,000 attempts to brute force into one of our RDP servers, which is our remote desktop, that allowed people to come in and use our systems if they were at home. So that's now disabled. We don't have RDP. You got to get onto our network first. Yes, while users are a huge vulnerability, absolutely, I agree with that. However, if we're not in the IT department ensuring that the administrative permissions behind that user are preventing what they're trying to do, we're not really doing our job. We can train them the best we can, but I don't think anybody wants to sit through a IT security brief every day for me to tell them what's going on with municipal government. So yes, Albany, New York, has anyone read that in the paper? That happened last week. They got hit with ransomware. Atlanta, Georgia, they're up to about $10 million total recovery cost from their ransom. Rockport, Maine, I don't really have the cost on that. Spring Hill, Tennessee, and Saco, Maine, we've been hit 3 times. That increased our amount of work that we had to do over probably, I believe we had 4 days where we had to restore a couple databases and our dispatch system. So that was many years ago. That hasn't happened recently. Yeah, Howard's this summer. It was a great night. Howard's, is that your SCADA? Howard's SCADA computer was taken over by someone. We don't really know who. Their IP address was all over the place. So that could have been bad. I don't know if they could have actually done anything, but the idea that they were in the system, they could have traversed over to our other systems, and then we're at their mercy. So there you are. Yeah. It's always a fun thing to deal with. So, all right. So InDiscovery. InDiscovery is that thing. It's that piece of software that's going to monitor 100% of our devices consistently, constantly. InDiscovery is a local company. They're in Westbrook, South Portland. They recently were purchased by Tyler Technologies. And they're basically there to monitor everything for us 24/7. They also, when an alert happens, they send us information, what happened, as well as remediation steps to fix the issue. So that expense is about $10,000 per year, and that is every single device on our network. So what is InDiscovery? Contextual and behavioral analysis, examination of behavioral attributes, detection of sophisticated and zero-day threats, current threat intelligence, up-to-date and ongoing security analysis and intelligence from public and private data repositories. Data aggregation and advanced analytics. This removes the silos that we're here, we see what we're happening, but what's happening across the global landscape, it's very difficult for us to see. There's a lot of tools that we can use, but not a lot of time to dig into those things all the time. This detects new threats from automated tools that are known to exist. And then we have business-specific context and security intel. This develops a baseline of users. So we start looking at what users are doing, and when something is really weird, then we get an alert about that. So there you go. And then we're looking at changing our antivirus. We trialed this. I actually threw a bunch of viruses at it. It saw everything, stopped everything. I found some, I threw actual viruses, not just hashes of fake viruses. So we're looking to replace our existing AV. Our current one is an on-premises portal. It's super difficult to manage. If we want to block USB drives, it would take, probably about 20 config changes on our existing. With this, I was able to block, but then allow certain ones. Took me half a minute. So it's really good AV. I'm not going to say everyone should use it, but we want to. So this comes with 3 different pieces. Sophos Central, which is our central portal. It gives us all that insight into what's happening. Oh, thank you, Kevin. And then InterceptX, which is deep learning. So this is using artificial intelligence to see what's going on and will alert us. And And then we have endpoint detection and response, which gives us the ability to detect, investigate, and respond. So this gives us that root cause analysis. So when we do see a virus, we do see something, we can see what happened instead of, hey, let's try to figure out what happened. This actually keeps those logs, tells us everything that the virus was talking to, what files it created, fun stuff, so, at least for me. The last RAD, boards, committees, non-computer user staff do not currently have a sacomaine.org email address. We want to add 155 licenses. 130 of those are boards and committees. However, some of those could be cut off. We'd only buy exactly what we need. The reason we need to do this is FOAA request, really. When I get an FOAA request that says, I want to know everything that happened on this board, I can't tell you. You have to go to that person and ask them to search their Gmail to get that information. I can't provide that to people right now. And then we have those users that are just not typical computer-based users, but we now have online portal for our paycheck software that I would really like for users to have a known good email address that we can verify. That email address wouldn't stick with the user. Once they do leave, they can change it because I don't care what happens to them once they're terminated or leave, but I do care what happens to them when they're here. And one compromised email can turn into many compromised emails. So I think that's it. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions to my right? Councilor Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you know exactly how many security threats a day total you get?
So there's some things that I would like to not discuss publicly, right? I can get that information for you, absolutely. Public forum, we don't really want to discuss, defense in depth, what we're actually doing for protections and things like that. I can get you, what are you asking for exactly, and I can get you that.
Just a number.
A number of?
How many threats a day?
That would be pretty difficult. I can say our firewall gets hit a certain amount of times a day. We receive X amount of malicious emails a day. And that's malicious with a virus attached. This isn't malicious where someone was phishing for information. I can't really count that high.
Could you email it to me?
Can find out, sir, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilor Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the presenters that were before him. I'm looking at the specific RAD 20 or 2-20 on headcount for a cybersecurity program manager. And I'm looking at the third category on the requested and recommended budget for $92,000. And if you look at the 500-102 number, and then you look over on page 87 under expense-based pay, and 500-102 is in the category of supervisory wages. Is this employee going to be supervising anyone?
No, I'm not sure what it would have been classified as that. I mean, they're going to be supervising the cybersecurity for the system, but not an actual person, so. It doesn't have to be in that supervisory wages, that's not.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any questions to my left? Councilor, excuse me, Micah. Councilor Smart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Ryan. So I can't even begin to imagine what sort of threats are coming in, but would implementing the end discovery and potentially the Sophos as well lessen the need to have that additional person come in immediately?
I mean, it's going to help, right? Anything would help. But realistically, there are still logs. There are still things that we have to comply to, right? So we have to do CGIS compliance, PCI compliance. It would help, yes. I think it's a kind of a package type of solution where it's the person that's also going to manage that, create policies, respond to incidents at a higher level than myself or my technicians could.
And if you were going to prioritize these RADs, would you say that the cybersecurity professional would be your top priority?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you mean a higher priority than the Sophos or the Indiscovery?
Yes, so Sophos, we're going to switch to either way. That's not an actual cost increase until we add the 2 additional modules to that.
Now, you currently use Trend,
No, we use Semantic.
Semantic?
Yes,
And so this would be replacing the cost,
Of
the annual
Semantic.
cost of Semantic.
yes.
Is the $13,500 actually a RAD then?
The
Because
addition,
you're
it should be an
you're
addition
supplanting
to.
one piece of software.
Yes.
How much is the,
Sophos
how much is
is-
the Semantic license annually?
So about $2,400. Sophos is about $3,300 additional for the protection. So it's an increase on cost for the AV.
Okay. So let me ask, first of all, Councilor Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, I just remembered my other question. Forgive me for the pause there. Back to the supervisory wages line item. I'm looking at the line item budget for 500-102. Was this a position that was funded before? It looks like in 2015 it was at $98,914, 2016 $103,181, but then in 2017 it drops down to $12,000, 2018 $6,700 roughly, and then it's zeroed out until this RAD. So was this a position that was there before?
We've never had this, we've always had 3 IT people.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. There was a 4th position when we were the schools and city combined. There were more positions, but I think since that has happened, we've always been the 3 IT people for the city.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have an explanation, Ms. Salas, associated with the spending that occurred in prior years, which
I
think
can answer
is,
that. So that was when we had a director, 2 deputy directors. That was when Dave Lawler was here. He was the director. And then we had the 2 deputy directors under him, 1 for the city, 1 for the schools. And then I believe the city had 1 additional person. The city did pay for all the IT people for the schools and city combined, and the schools reimbursed us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Makes sense.
Councilor Copeland.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you for your presentation. You went quickly over something, and I thought I heard you say about AR upgrades. So what I really would be interested in is having the capability for taxpayers to set up automatic payments.
I believe for taxes?
Right.
I believe that's something that they have to set up with finance, right? They have,
Yeah, so for the payment plans, we do accept automated payments from customers, and that's typically done through ACH withdrawals on their bank accounts. But we need to process it through the finance department because there's a lot of work in terms of setting up payment plans in our financial software that can't be automated.
So
at
it's
this
not
time.
simple like a credit card where you can sign up and say, just pay it.
You can, but you have to come in and sign all of the paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork involved with payment plans, so that's the only one that would be automated and regular, like on a monthly basis or what have you.
Okay, thank you. And you talked about some older documents and, paper versus digital. What about I don't know where they are, if they're still in the annex, but there was tons of stuff that needed to be scanned. Is that a project that's still going on?
so that would be up to the departments that are scanning those documents, and I couldn't tell you where they're at with that.
So that's not an IT function?
No, we don't scan people's documents for them.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Johnston.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. I had several questions, and you answered them all during the presentation, so great job.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Any additional questions to my right? Seeing none. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. And if we could go to Mr. Lambert. And you can sit or stand as you please.
I'm going to ask Emily to drive, and I'm going to... Thank you. Good evening, council and mayor. I can't tell you, this is probably my 34th budget presentation, so they don't get any easier. But here's mine for this year. Go ahead. The Code Enforcement Department consists of myself as a director, Karen Audie, who is my administrative assistant, Deputy Director of Code Enforcement, Dave Toomey, and then we have a compliance inspector, Dawn Fisk, and a part-time inspector that we just brought on board, and an electrical inspector, which is also a part-time position. The mission of the department is written up there. I'm not going to repeat it, but it's pretty much to provide safe and stable housing, stable neighborhoods through enforcement of zoning regulations. And our four areas that we deal with mostly are inspections, zoning, and that's including compliance, certifications. I just had to do one today on a property that's being sold, and when it's a commercial property, lenders are very, very particular about what they get for documentation, and they ask us to sign like a 4-page form that tells them what the zoning is, what the permitted uses are, whether they had a site plan approval, all that stuff. So it takes a while to get those things. We do charge for those because our time is not free. Complaint resolution's a big one, and plan review. Major accomplishments for this past year, FEMA approved the proposed modification of the Sawyer Brook area floodplain. They actually took it out of the floodplain because back when we installed the Spring Street sewer interceptor, that part of Sawyer Brook didn't see any more flow. But we never modified the maps. We had a study done. It was approved just recently, and that portion of the brook is no longer in the floodplain. In calendar year 2018, we issued 528 building permits, and it's the first time our percentages look like this, where we had 53% of the construction total being commercial and not residential. In fiscal year 19, we issued a total of almost 1,449 total permits, and that includes building, electrical, plumbing, septic, and occupancy permits. And then an additional 174 seasonal rental permits. Those are the permits we issue down to the beach for folks to be able to rent out their properties. We do an inspection once every 5 years, and we issue a permit yearly. We responded to 118 complaints, and I should say that's 181, rather, documented complaints, and I'll explain that a little bit later. And then we hired a new shared inspector with the town of Old Orchard Beach after the position was vacant for over 6 months. There's a problem with code enforcement as far as people getting into the business. Nobody's getting into the business. And people that are certified are retiring. And there's nobody coming in behind us to take our places. So we end up hiring people, hopefully that have a little bit of construction experience. The young lady that we got this time was a Section 8 housing inspector in the city of Sanford. We're lucky to be able to get her. She has experience with inspections of existing structures, but is not certified. So we're going through the certification process now. She's obtained a couple of her certifications. This is the third person we've had in this position in probably 2 years. So the turnover rate is a little bit high right now. And hopefully it's my desire that we hold on to this one, because I think her name is Irish Griffith, and she'll make an outstanding inspector. And this is just a graphic to show what the trend line is for permit activity in the city. The ones on the bottom are individual types of permits, building, electrical, plumbing, and the top line is total. Complaint resolution is kind of a misnomer. We go out and we look at documented complaints, and some of them take little time. And like I said, the documented complaints are the ones that we have to spend some time with. The ones that we can take care of in a day, a lot of times they don't even get recorded because we just don't have time to input that information, and they're so minor that we don't enter it into the program. However, the 181 complaints that we did get, one of them involved removal of 936 tons of illegally disposed turf on a piece of property in North Saco. And it took about 80 man-hours to get that resolved and get it taken care of. But it's all cleaned up now, and the property's changed hands, and there's a new owner who's going to take care of it. Plan review is one of our program areas. Plan review does not only consist of building plan reviews. Each submission that goes to the planning board has to have a review by our department and several other departments that are either at this table or not here today. We also do contract zoning amendment review, conditional use permits, site plan, subdivision. Each one of those takes quite a bit of time, and we have to write out our report and send it back to the planning department. The increase in the commercial construction that we noted earlier has resulted in an increase in the number of plan reviews that we do on those plans, and some of them can be quite complex, including the one that we just received for Ready Seafood. They have their shell permit, but they don't have their overall finished permit, and those plans just came in. We were working with them to get them in the ground, get them started, and they're continuing to go. We'll finish up the permits, and that'll be a significant permit cost. That's going to be about an $8 million project when it's all said and done. Some of the new construction, and you can see it if you look across the street to the 5-story residential building going up, utilizes a different kind of construction than we've ever seen. These are prefabricated panels that are pre-insulated, and then they just stack up, and they're proprietary. That means that one company, and only one company, can do these things, and so we have to research that company and find out whether or not they have their approvals from the building code agencies or not, or they've been tested by CTL or UL or one of the testing agencies that are approved. So it takes a little bit more time to see the new technology. All of the storage buildings that are being built, including the one on the industrial park and the one behind U-Haul, utilize a different type of construction where the interior walls actually are supporting walls to the exterior walls. So everything works as a system, and we've never seen that before, so it's all something that we're learning as well as inspecting. The RAD that, again, we had was Sawyer Brook, and that's all done. It's all documented. It was put in effect in February of this year, and folks are marketing the property now. In addition, and this is something that wasn't part of the RAD, but has something to do with floodplain. I just got notified today by the ISO that the city of Saco retained its Class 8 certification for floodplain administration. So that translates into a 10% savings to policyholders that hold floodplain flood insurance policies in the city of Saco because of our efforts to mitigate and to enforce our regulations on floodplain management. Some of the major challenges we're going to run up against are, of course, the blighted building and property maintenance issues that we haven't been able to abate. We try to work with owners, and at the last resort, we have to take them to court. Generally, when we take folks to court, we ask the judge to impose a condition that if the tenant fails to abate the problem or the owner fails to abate the problem, it allows the city to go in there and abate it for them and then charge against the taxes. But we still need money up front in order to do that. And this year we were fortunate. We've done 4 of those, and the costs have reached somewhere near $100,000 total for all of those over the past 4 or 5 years, including demolitions, septic systems, and property maintenance. And we've gotten restitution on 3 of them. And so the only thing that's left outstanding was a replacement of a malfunctioning septic system, and we're owed about $14,000 on that one. Pending preliminary flood insurance maps, they're still pending. They've been pending for, I think, 5 years now. They were going to adopt them, as far as I know, the beginning of this year, but because of an appeal that was filed and because of the federal shutdown, they weren't able to do that. So we're in a holding pattern again. If they do become effective, they may have an impact on several property owners in the beach area because their properties are not in a flood zone and they will be. Also, the flood plain heights are going to change significantly. Training and certification, retaining of new inspectors, we talked about, so that we can finally launch our multifamily inspection program. That's still out there. We haven't started it yet because we haven't had an inspector to go out there and do the actual inspections, and we're hoping to get that underway this year. Maintaining the level of service during a booming economy. We're all busy. We're all trying to get plans reviewed and permits issued and out the door as quickly as possible. But you can see if you just drive around in this town how much construction activity is taking place. And each one of those permits that we issue out, I can't tell you how many times I've been at the A. Dewey Pyle site to inspect different aspects of that construction. It's coming along very good, but we're always there. So it takes a certain amount of time to get all of those inspections done. We're going to be applying for some funding for the from the Department of Environmental Protection to assist low-income homeowners in replacing malfunctioning septic systems. We have one property owner right now who qualifies, and hopefully we can get that person 90% funding to replace the system. And then, as Ryan touched on, we're going to be implementing the online permit application process, and IT's been a very good resource and very much in the forefront of leading this charge. And I have to also actually also brag that Joe Lambert, who he mentions is my son, and I'm very proud of him. So I got to put my plug in. Anyhow, the budget summary looks like this. A lot of this is, as you can see, almost all base pay. We don't eat up a lot of consumables. As far as our department, it's almost all manpower that we deal with. And so that is what's shown here. There is a RAD that's included in this. It's the same RAD that I've asked for the past 2 years, and that's to include a revolving funding account to take care of property maintenance and blighted buildings and replacement of septic systems. and that is to the tune of $35,000. And this also will eliminate the need to draw off the contingency account, which is what our go-to account has been over the past few years. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lambert.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Councilor Gay.
Thank you. What happens to properties that gets turned over to the city for unpaid taxes?
Glynis?
I can take that. There's a pretty small number of properties every year that the city takes ownership of because of unpaid taxes, and it has to go through council approval in order for us to take ownership. For example, we did have one property last year that we took ownership of. At the point where the finance department has foreclosed on the property and the council's approved taking ownership, it's then turned over to the city administrator at his discretion to undergo the process of disposal of the property. We do have a policy. Our purchasing policy includes language about the disposal of tax-acquired property, and the alternatives are to go to bid on to accept bids on the property, or to enlist the aid of a real estate agent and sell it in the market.
And Mr. Lambert, wasn't your reference to the 489 Buxton Road property cleanup, I believe that was the one piece of property that was tax lien acquired?
The tax-acquired property was a little further up from that. It was actually the adjacent property to it.
Oh, okay.
But we were asked to go out and take a look at the property to make sure there are no big red flags like what we found next door.
Yep.
So that at least the city is aware of what we're getting into.
Right. So
Thank
code
you.
has an impact on that property because they'll go and make sure that it's not a Superfund site or something equally bad. Any other questions to my right? To my left, Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Dick, for your presentation. Good information. You and I have spoke about this issue before, but when you talk about blighted things, and I immediately think about the hoarding situation, and we talked about neighbors having concerns, and that it's not just about the person, it's about the area, the fire department has to get involved. Are we making any progress on that?
We are, as far as, I think, the one particular issue that you discussed. I have Don Fisk and Deputy Chief Pendleton are both working with the homeowner on this, and has had at least 2 meetings? 2 meetings with that individual, and it's difficult because it's a mental health problem.
Absolutely, understandable.
And we're trying to be cognizant of that, but at the same time, we need to address the neighbors' concerns as well, because
That's
it could
who I'm
be a
speaking on
disaster.
behalf of, yeah. All right, well, thank you, and keep up the good work.
Any other questions? Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Under the non-supervisory wages, the approved budget for this current year is $119K, and there's a $56,000 increase. Is that recognizing the position that's filled now?
Shouldn't. I didn't do any of that part of the budget.
Oh, I see. You're looking at the line items
Yeah.
specifically? Yes. So what happened with that is that we had the certified electrician, who's the half a head count in this department, being paid under contracted services, and we migrated that expenditure to non-supervisory wages because really the employee had a W-2. I mean, he was considered an employee of the city, so
Yeah.
filing his wages under contracted services was a misnomer. And we had also budgeted, oh yes, so there's 16,000, I apologize, 16,000 in contracted services was left over from when we were paying Old Orchard Beach for a half a head count. And so now that person is an employee of this city, and so we've migrated that 16,000 into the non-supervisory wages line. And then the code enforcement stipends, we've migrated also into the non-supervisory wages because the word stipend is a misnomer. It's not a stipend, it's wages. So,
There should be a corresponding revenue or partial revenue from the town of Orchard Beach for their share of that position.
right, so although we pay that particular employee a full-time wage, Old Orchard Beach will be issuing us checks to compensate for, on a quarterly basis, both the salary and the benefits, and that amount will go back directly into the wages line. So the wages line really only represents half of the employee's salary.
So actually, perhaps it should read the full amount of the wage, and then the revenue end would have a line in there identifying an amount that we would get from Old Orchard. The net of that is the 56,000.
The net of that is the total budget, which is 175, because it also includes a full-time headcount.
Right.
It's 2 part-time headcounts and a full-time headcount in that line. There's a little bit of a back and forth about whether when we're receiving revenue to offset an expense, we put that revenue directly back into the expenditure line, or we choose to render it as a revenue line. Different departments have different preferences. We went the direction of having the revenue go directly to offset the expense line simply because it's easier to keep track of the revenue that way. And also, that's the way that we've been handling similar situations with the police department, where we're putting the revenue and the expense in the same line. So it's a technical difference, a philosophical difference. With this particular item, that's how we went with it.
Okay. Additional questions to my left? Do you? I think we're running okay, just saying. So any additional questions? As I would understand it, that line has 2 half-time FTEs and a full-time FTE. Any questions to my right? Seeing none, I have a request for a brief recess before Mr. Summer speaks. Do you have anything to wrap up with, Mr. Lambert?
I just wanted to thank my staff. I think I've got an awesome group of people that work with me down in the code office, including my deputy, David. We take the time, and a lot of times we'll come in early, we'll stay late. Some of the inspections happen on weekends because it's the only time that it can be done. So they go the extra mile and really believe in customer service. But
I think that your
time to
staff
thank them.
recognizes your dedication to it, and they follow suit, and I really think the city appreciates how well the code enforcement department works. Before we take a quick recess, I just wanted to remind people that there are, if you have questions or comments, there are question sheets on the table to the rear, and there's also an online form in the budget portion of the website. So if you have questions or comments to make, the city staff will respond to them. You just have to put them down in writing. So we're at a brief recess, and we'll be back hopefully in less than 5 minutes. So please don't wander far. Okay. John, you having a good time? Are you having a good time? Well, I'm hoping we might hear something in the
It's booming. It was Augusta. Actually got out of there fairly early. 11.
I listened in and they already correction or the jail budget bill?
No, housing, labor and housing.
Okay.
We had workers' comp.
I heard the last one before they reached.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to come back out of recess. Mr. Ryan Summer is next. Mr. Summer, are you prepared to give your presentation? I notice your very able deputy director is here somewhere. Erica Doobie, Ms. Doopie. Oh, that's right. She just stepped out. Yes, you can do something. At least do a quick soft shoe.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Test 1, 2.
And there she is. She has entered the room.
All right. While Erica comes up.
Oh,
sure. Erica can sit right here.
Yep.
So I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank Council and the Mayor for allowing us to present. Before we get going, what I'd like to do is recognize Erica and congratulate her and present her to you. She won the Young Professional Award for the Maine Parks and Recreation Association.
Oh, congratulations.
We're extremely proud and honored to have her as a staff and what she does for us, and I'm thankful for her to be my deputy. So as we move forward, and we've lost the presentation, and so for us, the Saco Parks and Recreation Department is dedicated to creating and providing active and passive recreation opportunities in order to promote social, cultural, and physical well-being to improve the quality of life for all present and future Saco residents and its visitors. The last year and a half, the 18 months I've been on staff, we really strived for this, really our mission statement. We've added new programs. We've worked hard to transform our department from where we were to where we are. This is something that for us has been a huge opportunity to reinvest in. We're 14 staff, full-time staff. We've increased that over the last couple people over the last year. We became, when I took over, what I felt was top-heavy, to now a much more broad range of staff to work together, as well as transformed us to having Erica into the deputy position, to moving two staff who've worked phenomenal, Erica and Steve, and 2 coordinators. I have a great park staff with Barry and Corey. So I'm really, again, I can't thank my staff enough on how we move forward, and this department has come out to where we were the last year and a half. One of the proud things we have is we have 92% retention for our summer employees. So at that, we have 24 new staff that we brought on who are 15 and 16-year-olds primarily, and they're all part-times because really we didn't have a huge number of positions to go. We have all 7 lifeguards coming back, as well as we've added 1 more. So really going into the summer, we are well-positioned, we are seasoned staff, and we are looking forward to what we can accomplish in this future moving forward. Staff has worked hard for After the Bell program, which have again exceeded our numbers and expectations. We offer 5 summer camps. Part of one is the Twin City Theater Camp. We've added 19 new programs to an overall of 70 programs overall in the department and over 400 activities that we offer. Again, participation and revenue has exceeded expectation, and where I projected at the beginning of fiscal year 2019 at $920,000, we will probably be well above the $960,000 in revenue. So we've really pushed hard and exceeded the expectation where we're moving. One of the programs or division of our department is seniority. This has really blossomed. You're going to see some transitions with that under my budget side of it. We continue to expand these programs. We continue to offer more to get these seniors or 50 plus into not only our building, but also out enjoying programs and enjoying each other and enjoying the atmosphere of one another. We've teamed up with Soccer Age Friendly, provided one of the things that many people have not been able to enjoy over the years, which allow opportunity for people to enjoy the beach who are in wheelchair or handicap accessible. Huge thing. For us, we have staff members who couldn't go down to see it. So it was really, again, a great partnership with that. We also teamed up with gardens, flower gardens, vegetable gardens that are handicap accessible at the center. So we really, again, we're working together to bring the whole community together, and not just what I hear just for the kids. It's not for the kids, it's for everybody, and that's what we strive to do. Our Parks Department, I can't say enough, for being really a four and a half man crew, these guys work hard. They're understaffed, but they come to work every day, they give you everything they got. I expect more out of them every day. And again, what we see is a rendering of where we are going, not where we want to be, but where we are going to beautify the city. That's something that they're important, but again, they work hard for us. Some of the highlights, we're part of the 5210 program. We collaborate with the Bedford Recreation Department with their theater program. We have more adult senior programs. And again, for people who aren't on Facebook, on April 27th, we have created Earth Day. Today, we have 81 residents who have participated in that programs. The 5 parks that we're going to clean up is the Riverwalk, the Jubilee Park, Haley Park in the Community Garden, Pepperell Park, and Cascade Falls. And as more and more people come on, our backup parks will be Diamond Riverside, Memorial Park, and the Community Center. So if you have time, April 27th, 9 to 12, come on down and help us clean the parks. Some recreation statistics. We have almost 8,200 residents in our system, and based on 2017 numbers, we are about 43% of the population who are currently participating in our programs or are there. I like to see 100%. We'll get there, trust me. Non-resident registration, the resident registration is about 25,000. Non-residents, we see about 30,000 registrations. Again, that's multiple registrations. So a family can register multiple times for different programs. First-time users, 900 first-time users this year. Activities is 450. Reservations, this is something we're really trying to expand on. Reservations for our community center, people coming in, it's a revenue aspect for us between birthday parties and using the facility for baseball and softball and, just bringing in the groups. This is really something that we'll continue to strive, and as the one thing about it, as you build this part up, my hope is to continue to build programs so that buildings just get smaller and smaller. The time isn't always there. But if we have it and it's open, we will have an aspect in their rental. The one thing about what we do is, we don't hand a key over to somebody. So for us, we have a full-time staff or a seasonal staff that will unlock the building, lock the building up, will be there for the whole time during the activity. Again, it is our building. We want to make sure that it's properly done, that it's taken care of, and if there's any issues from outside group, that we are there to make sure that we can accommodate that as well. RAD updates from 2019, what I asked for last year. I came in, what we've done is we've replaced broken parts of neighborhood parks at Hillview Heights. We've spent a lot of time at Diamond Riverside, and we've updated all the school playgrounds in the sense of the drop zone and bringing in wood chips and so forth. We purchased 8 metal benches, picnic tables that are heavy, that really are almost impossible to move, as well as we've built 12 new benches that you saw a lot of them on Main Street right now. Those are the new ones we did over the winter, and have rebuilt 12 new picnic tables that will go out to the parks. So we've really worked hard to, again, invest in our parks, invest in the things that we care about the most. to bring people back. We rebuilt soccer middle school tennis courts. They will be online hopefully by Memorial Day weekend, to have it resurfaced, repainted, ready to go. We will be resurfacing the young school tennis courts, which again will be redone by Memorial Day weekend. And the one thing that we did, which wasn't really in my plans, but because I got a pretty good deal on what we got for the tennis courts, is we turned Memorial tennis courts into 6 pickleball courts, which will be ready to go by Memorial Day weekend. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America, so we do it inside, and now we're going to do it outside. Some of the pictures for what we've done online, some of the picnic tables, Riverside, just things that we've worked hard on throughout the year. And the same thing with the tennis courts. Major challenges. As I sat here a year ago and talked about major challenges, this will continue to arise for the next year or two. For us, we are the biggest department probably in the city that uses seasonal employees. When the minimum wage went from $10 to $11, it'll hurt. And when it goes from 11 to 12, it's a $50,000 increase to my department, just for that. And it's something that really, at the end of the day, I sat here and came to you and asked for increases for my summer camp to offset some of it, not all of it. That's something that's a burden that's kind of taken onto the department as part of my budget. With that being said, and the directive, we didn't go above it. So really, when you take $50,000 in that and you take another position to make up what your directive looks like, some other pieces got to change. You know, so really what I count my core operating account, you have your salaries and those stuff that would be directed, and that's where it sits. You have a small $500,000 that we operate, how we make changes in the city and how we run our department and stuff like that. As those challenges, minimum wage increases, it takes away what I can do at the bottom line budget line. So it's a shell game, but understand we increase our salary line by $100,000 between minimum wage increase, the one position that I had that we hired in the early spring, and then all your contractual increases. But my budget only goes up $74,000, so that $25,000 takes away from the other $500,000 we can operate on. That is something that we will continue to strive and make sure that we do what we're supposed to be doing at a high rate. I'm not saying next year when that continues to increase for the next dollar increase, that is something that will continue to be an issue moving forward for at least the next year. But we've really worked hard to not put the burden on the taxpayers on this one, and really strive to put it on ourselves to make it work for us. Until we build one, this would be the biggest issue we have, in my mind. A destination park where the community can come together to socialize, to recreate, to be a community, and have all aspects of recreation in one park. From your concerts in the park, to your movies in the park, to your craft fairs in the park, to just walking through the trails. You know, there is a location, and when that time comes, we will sit down together as a council and as a staff to determine what's in the best interest. But until that happens, there is one in mind, but this is something this town and this city needs to really finalize the Parks and Recreation Department. It is an essential aspect, and most phenomenally run recreation departments have a park like this. We are darn good, but once I get this, I will put this department against anybody in the state to show what we can do when we have all the aspects that we can work with. But this is something that for the next, every day, every year I come to, this will always be on major challenges until we build it. Seasonal parks positions. Robust economy is phenomenal for so many people until you look at an organization like the Parks and Recreation Department who really could use full-time people, but under the constraints of financials, really strive to get seasonal park positions. We have 2. We currently have 1. At one point, we had 5. We've kind of brought a couple full-time. I have a position now, I've been in the paper for 4 months. I haven't had an application yet. We oversee, and we have it in the paper, we put it on Facebook, we put it on Maine Parks and Recreation, we put it on Maine Municipal Association. We have it out there in every aspect that we can get, and not one seasonal recreation seasonal parks guy that we've had come through. We maintained over 638 parks. We have 638 acres of land in the city, and we maintain over 143 parks, acres of it. For a 4.5-man staff, that's phenomenal. We work hard at what we do. And again, these guys, again with my recreation staff, they are the epitome of what you ask for from staff. They come out, they work hard every day, they don't complain, they enjoy what they do, which is, I think, why we get so much done. But, you know, it's a huge burden to continue as new developments come in, and they want to give us more land and more parks and stuff like that. Those are the conversations. Do we take them on? Do we not take them on? Because if I take them on, how do I maintain them? You know, so it's that catch-22 of what you want to do. But those are my two major challenges as we move forward. So you have the budget summary. 74% of my budget is through base salary, 6.2% is through programs, 5.2% is through equipment, and so forth. You know, so again, 75% of my budget is the 14 staff and the 125 plus seasonals that we have on a regular basis to operate our organization. So really, our expense changes were up by $80,000, $40,000 increase in revenue from last year to this year. I'll be the first one to tell you that's probably soft. But I'm a guy who knows I can hit the line and be comfortable with it. Could I sit here and say it's another $20,000, $30,000? Probably. But again, I'm not the guy who's going to over-exceed, because then at the end of the day, if I don't hit it, it affects everything else. I'd much rather have that go into next year's coffer, things of that nature. Again, I budget on what I'm going to hit this year. So really, I'm going to hit 960 this year. Therefore, next year, fiscal year 20 is going to be budgeted at 960. So I'm always a year behind. You're never going to stretch out and sit there and say, I'm going to hit $1 million this year, and you're just throwing a dart at a dartboard. I know I can hit 960. I'm coming to council and say, I will hit that number. That is something that we'll hit. So really, at the end of the day, the increase in the revenue, increase of my department's up $40,000 because revenue will be up 40. So really, it's just a $40,000 increase on taxpayers. I have 3 RADs. 2 of them you see. One we talked about a week ago. An aerifier. It's a deep tine aerifier. What this does for me is it allows for deep penetration into the soil to maximize water, to get down to the roots, improve airflow in the root system. It better makes the grass grow stronger, better, faster. But more importantly, what it does is it softens the ground. So really, at the end of the day, if you have 500 kids constantly chalking on the same piece of ground day after day after day after day, it compacts it. So it gets tougher to grow grass, but more importantly, on a fall radius, something happens, the kid falls, the ground is compacted enough, there's a potential of safety concerns. We're not there, but this will allow me to ensure that the ground is better, it has better softness, better aerated, it just grows grass better, but it's softer, not as compact. So the reason why you see that there's no grasses there and the ground is hard is concrete. The ground has been so compact on roots that the water can't get to it anymore, so it doesn't soften up. So by opening up the ground, it just allows for the ground to just be softer. Again, huge aspect for us. It's low money. We're at $17,000, but this is a machine that's going to last 25 years. You know, so at the end of the day, it's not something that's just going to be a year. It's a lifetime for me to do it. Park labor position. Because of the restraint of trying to find new employees, to seasonal employees, by creating another position, yes, there's a financial burden, but what it does is it allows me to take on the projects and to enhance the city, what I think most taxpayers would like to see, by doing plantings downtown, by bringing flowers into the city, by just creating more horticultural work and ball field upgrades, and the small projects that we try to do. Where we have a very, very short window right now, roughly in July, first week of August, when it's so hot and dry that we're not really mowing anymore. So I can do a couple projects, 1 or 2 projects, and then once it starts to rain again, then we're back out to mowing the grass. This will allow us to do a couple more projects in-house versus if we have to ship them out and so forth. My last is what I said I hit you guys a week ago. I'm going to continue to hit you. But one thing that I want to put in, so I talked about a 2-year, how many trees we put on the tree list, which is 56. Went back and over the 5 years, we put over 120 trees on the tree list. But really what you spent in 5 years on a contractor company coming in was roughly about $120,000 that you spent on a company coming in and take care of the trees. For us to do the work, and what we're willing to give up in the budget side of it by the 15,000 contractor service and the 5,000 in the rehab of the vehicles, to lease out a vehicle for $9,000 over the course of 5 years is short money, where if you continue to down the road that you're going to go to, and trees is a big issue for us in the city, as we took 5 different iWorks things in today regarding trees. This is something that is short money, which will be, for me, one of those things where at the end of the day, if you spent 15 years at $20,000 a year, you're looking at $300,000 for a truck, where I can do it for roughly, for the same amount, for $150 in 5 years. And then I own the truck for the next 10 years. So the money that you save in the short run, in the long run, in my opinion, makes sense over what you might spend in the long run. And that concludes it.
Thank you very much. Let me first ask to my right, any questions? Councilor Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where is the location for the public park you have in mind for the people to gather?
Where do I have the destination park?
Yes.
Off record?
Yes. Of course.
For the viewing audience.
For the viewing audience, if everything holds pat, and there was a school that is built in this city that is a combined school, and the opportunity comes and Pepper Park becomes not a school anymore, that would be your destination park.
Very good.
That will be the ideal location. If and when that ever comes about, that will be it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Off the record.
Off the record.
Any other questions to my right? Questions to my left? I have a quick one, just one quick one. Excuse me, Counselor. Doesn't TA have a deep time aerator? And I can't, because aside from Hill Stadium, they maintain, what is it, three baseball fields and a softball field, a couple of lacrosse fields, or, one junior Trojan field and a lacrosse field. And
I don't know if they're deep time, if they're slicer seated, but I can check and I can have a conversation with them.
because that's a very shareable asset. I mean,
Right.
it's spending 17 grand on one of those when, between the two of you, you would
Yep.
actually get good use out of it. Would make it certainly more appealing for, say, a laborer position. Okay, counselors to my left. Oh, Counselor, I see a pile of them, and Counselor Johnston is first.
Thank you. Could you, if possible, break down what we spend on parks now versus the rec side? I don't need the answer right now, but just an estimate.
I can. If you want an estimate right now, we probably spend, if I had to do a close ballpark figure, we probably spend about 1.1, 1.15 on rec, and then about 550 on parks.
Okay, thank you.
And most of that is built in because you're spending $660,000 on seasonal rec, so half of that budget on rec is seasonal staff.
Counselor Johnston, all set?
I am, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Minthorn's next.
Have we decided what we're going to do to address the heat in the building in the summer?
So the heat at the community center has been addressed. When we build when we bring in the new unit for the gym, it will also actually have the air conditioning unit in the gym. But you'll still have the window air conditioning units in the old part of the building, but the gym will have an air conditioner system in there, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Counselor Copeland.
Is that part of a bond?
Thank you, Mr.
That
Mayor.
was part of the bond,
Part of a
yes.
bond, okay, great. Excuse me, Counselor Copeland.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your leadership. I know I'm on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board with
What's his
Counselor Counselor Johnston, and it's a great organization. I really feel like the leadership is fantastic. Erica, you have, obviously been recognized by others, but but know that we recognize you too, and that you are fantastic. I've seen the guys out there at the different schools, and, you know, I don't think they know who I am in my little car or whatever, but they're just happy, they're doing their work, they're caring, they're careful, they're directing you away from things that you shouldn't be going into right now, and just, attitude comes from the top, and it's evident that that's a well-run department. Thank you. I'm obviously partial to Parks and Rec, so just know that too.
Take that.
Couple quick questions. I know about the young school tennis courts, but can you explain to others why would we be putting money into those tennis courts?
So really so what we did was at my last year's RAD, it's by resurfacing it, it doesn't allow the tennis courts to fall apart like they did at the middle school, or even down at the Memorial tennis courts where they came offline for so long. So what you should do every 5 to 7 years is do a quick skim coat resurface, repaint the lines. It takes care of the cracks, and it's a longevity race. So it's something that should be done every 5 to 6 years, versus not doing it for 25 years and watching those cracks get bigger and bigger. So whatever happens to the school, you're still looking at 5 years, so those courts it's just, in my opinion, cheap money that we'll continue to do over the course of every 5 to 7 years, just resurfacing our courts.
Thank you. Another question I was thinking about, when you were talking about the minimum wage increase, and I think about Director Clavette and how she uses that TIF money in like these incredible ways. I'm just wondering if like the park benches in town could be paid for with TIF money. You know, can we use some of the TIF money to offset some of these expenses?
Most of those parks, so some of those park benches, the ones that are around town right now are usually memorial benches, so they're usually purchased already. And so we
Wait,
just
say
put
that
them
again,
up.
slower.
So they're memorial benches.
Okay.
So somebody's usually purchasing
Okay.
them already. There are some that that we do purchase. You know, again, we take them back to the shop every year, but we went out and really spent, you know, because through the RAD they gave me last year, we really came out and said, okay, we're going to invest into our parks. Some of that can be done with the TIF money, I believe, but don't quote me. That's something I'll have to talk to Denise about. I know a lot of recreational aspects cannot, but I think something like a bench or a picnic table might be able to.
All right, so I really wish you would talk to her and see if we can reap some of those benefits, keep costs down. Another thing is signage.
Yes.
None of our parks have signs.
No.
It's horrible, it's ridiculous. When are we going to get some signs?
So Emily, Denise, and I, again, using some of the TIF money.
I know we were waiting for the new logo.
Yeah,
It's
we're
here.
beginning to talk about wayfinding signs. And those are the things that I think over the next couple weeks and months, we'll begin to bring to the advisory committee. We talked about that at the last advisory, to begin to maneuver some wayfinding signs to all our parks and all our locations that so need to be addressed. In my opinion, you know, it's disappointing when you go up in the city or you take the advisory group and it's like, I didn't know this park was here. Because if you're not familiar, or you don't take that road every once in a while, and you just don't see it. So having signage to take the residents and the visitors to parks that they aren't aware that they're there is huge. So that's something that we will be working on very, very hard this quarter.
I know the MDOT signs, you've got that started up, but so we're here talking about the budget. Is there something for signage that should be in the budget?
Oh, okay.
Emily's going to take that question.
Okay, great.
Oh, speak into the microphone, please.
We've reached out to a few surrounding communities just to get an idea of what, like Scarborough recently underwent some wayfinding changes, just to find out how much that costs. Ryan and I will be meeting with Denise to review. We'll put together an RFP before we would move forward with anything. But I believe there is some TIF money allocated from a previous discussion with Denise that will go towards wayfinding. So the Economic Development Commission has reviewed that proposal, and I think they favored moving forward with that. So we will be utilizing some TIF funds to work on our wayfinding in the community and have it be consistent for signage downtown, to mark our different landmarks, to show where the beaches are, and then we'll also incorporate a similar design with our parks. So it's all consistent.
What about electronically, like an app or something? Understand that our parks are part of our engine. to attract businesses and people to live in Saco. So it's one of the things that actually has proven to matter. So if people can, go on their phone and find all this stuff, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We've started to do that a little bit with Google Maps, adding some different photos from some of the excursions that staff have taken, and I believe some of the different boards and committees, the Conservation Commission, they started capturing some photography as well, and
Yes,
so
they
I know
did.
Maggie O'Neill sent me her photos that she had taken, and we've been able to use those for different projects. But I agree, I think we have an opportunity to work with them to have a better online presence and app presence. And if you happen to find an app that you really like that you use
I've
for
sent
trails,
it to
then-
I've sent it to the director of parks.
Great.
So he's got that. And it was good of you to point out the Conservation Commission. They went through a huge effort. They were each assigned a park. They went out, they analyzed what was good, what was bad, what needed to be done, and made a great project out of that. And I think that that's going to be good information to pull all it together. So thank you. One more last point, and that laborer that you have in there for $30,000 doesn't sound like it includes any benefits or anything.
So how that works is what I've done with the laborer is because we have 21,000 in seasonal position. So the seasonal laborer, so the seasonal parks position that I have at 21,000, for the 9 months position, would offset some of that cost for the position. So the position's a $37,000 position plus about 16,000 in fringe benefits, so it's about
Okay.
53,000. You take away 21,000, comes out to roughly that number. So yes, it would be offset by some of my seasonal position salary line.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
So, yeah, just to quickly point out, 500-113, position 500-113 would be discontinued, and that acts as a deduction from the total cost of hiring somebody under 500-130.
That's correct. So there'll be a 21,000 come out of 500-113 will go into 500-130 if you did offer that position.
Okay, Councilor Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ryan.
Welcome.
I just got a quick question, and it's not related actually to the budget, but because you were talking about an aerifier, I would like to get an update at some point on the open space at Ross Ridge and where we sit with that. I know that the snow cover has just come back, so it's probably making that a little bit difficult, but in the not-so-distant future, I'd like to get an update on that.
So if you want, I can answer some of it. So we won't actually take that land over until, I believe, the first week in September. So under the agreement, it's a one-year growing period. Elliot and I have had conversation. I believe he's posted the field at this point because it's soft, and the last thing you want to do is put kids out there, and the roots really haven't taken. It grew in well in the fall. I have not had the opportunity to go back before the snow came, but I will go over and take a look at it. But we physically won't take it over until probably the 1st of September.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Johnston.
Gosh, see if I remember it.
I could never forget.
The forestry truck.
Yes.
You intend to use that on trees in the downtown, correct?
Absolutely.
So following the same line of thinking that Councilor Copeland was going down, isn't there potential to fund the capital lease from the downtown development district? Specifically states in there about equipment purchases.
I believe from a technical perspective, it is possible to fund it from the Downtown Development District, but I know where we landed in terms of use of Downtown Development District funds, there wasn't a lot left over at the end of the current allocation, so we would have to resort.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm just thinking in future years, we could be funding.
Yeah, we see the valuations continuing to grow significantly in the Downtown Development District, which will enhance our ability to use funding there.
If I may add a couple more things.
Excuse me,
So
go
under
right
this
ahead.
last slide, we had 8 years of Tree City USA. We have just won the 9th year of Tree City USA, so we just got that. No, that's still my thought. And the last thing I want to put in before we're done, before you guys kick me off this mic, is some thank yous to not just my staff, but also some of the city staff. So, Don Roth and his crew, those guys have worked tirelessly on my building over at the center, has kept that boiler going all year long without any issues this year, thank God, and maintained that facility. And, we couldn't do some of the things at that facility without them. And Mary Lou and Kristen for helping us onboard so many people throughout the year, for seasonal staff to make our life easier. And just the support. We worked hard. We work as one strong entity here. I'm thankful for having the opportunity to work for the city of Saco. It's been a great ride for the 18 months, and I look forward to the rest of my career.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. It has been a very good ride, and we thank you and your staff.
Yes.
So, anything else to my left? Anything else to my right? Seeing none, Mr. Sutherland. Before you start that, Ms. Salas, would you be able to give the council a spreadsheet that identifies headcount by fund, so that we know how many people are being paid out of the general fund and how many people are being paid out of any of the other fund accounts?
Yes, I can certainly do that. And for the final budget book, I can split the headcount allocation. Essentially, any headcount associated with WRD is paid out of the WRD fund.
That's right.
And then everyone else is paid out of the general fund, with the exception of a small amount of overtime, which is paid out of the wellness fund for our wellness activities. But that wouldn't be a full headcount.
Economic development,
At this point in time, economic development headcount is covered with is paid out of the general fund with a transfer in from the economic development fund to offset the cost, but the
Okay.
payment comes exclusively out of the general fund. Yeah,
okay, so basically it's just headcount is split between two funds.
Yeah.
One is the enterprise fund that is water resource recovery, and the other is the general fund where everything comes from.
Yes, and we have some seasonal employees, but again, they wouldn't be considered full-time equivalents in our headcount,
Yep.
paid out of Camp Ellis, as well as our harbor master. So that would be one, I guess you could say, half-time headcount, which is paid out of the Camp Ellis fund, if even half-time.
Out of the, right,
Yeah.
out of the fund controlled by coastal waters.
That's correct,
Right.
yep.
And so, but that is at least one half-time position in that?
That's one half-time position in Camp Ellis, which we can add to the headcount calculator or the headcount, well, hourly seasonal, but those wouldn't be considered full-time equivalents in our headcount.
Okay.
But I can add that to the headcount chart and
Yes.
delineate the funding source.
Thank you. So, Mr. Sutherland, administrative update. And do you have the opportunity to be able to address, like, and I'm not sure exactly what the question was during the public comment, but there was the senior program question, the TIF downtown development question, and the property acquisition, and I've got no idea what property acquisition is.
It's unclear to me what the property acquisition question was.
Okay.
I can address the TIF one pretty easily.
Or at least maybe next week's.
Sure. I mean, I did send an email to the council, and I leave it to them to distribute or send it on. But basically, we did not commit those funds until well after we had approval
That
from
one. Sure, yep.
from the state. So the state gave us approval for the TIF in August. The check was not cut until December of that year. So
Okay.
it didn't violate any of the state rules. We're in compliance. I'm still waiting from the auditor to provide a memo that provides all of that information. But at this time, that is not a concern for the city.
So you have an update?
I do have an update. So I want to talk quickly about fiscal year 20 budget items. Is there somebody over there? Could you just jump to the website for me, please? Hit escape. Dick, you know all the lingo now, huh? Yeah.
Are you training under Joe?
Our main website, City of Saco, sacomaine.org. There were several budget questions that were asked this past week that I'd like to just check in on, so that you know that they're there and you can find them. And there's a tab down there that says Budget Documents. Can you click that one for me? And there are 4 options here. One is questions and budget questions and answers. Third link down on the center there. Yes, please. So here you have the questions that have come up, and you can click on them and they take you to the answers. There's two there that are of relevance for tonight. What's an enterprise fund? Enterprise funds are a type of proprietary fund which charges customers directly for the services it provides. Enterprise proprietary funds are supposed to be self-sufficient, and that the services charges generally to cover the cost of operations over time. For this reason, they are reported using full accrual accounting in the financial statements each year and are completely separate from the city's general fund. So there's more detail explaining the enterprise proprietary funds. You can find them on pages 30, 34, and 53 of our 2018 CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. So the second question that's there is, what's the useful life of RAD 32? That's the garage fabrication equipment. The useful life of that piece of equipment is 25 to 30 years. So these and previously asked questions can be found on this website, and I encourage the public to jump online and check them out as we update them. Staff have been taking notes about questions that have been asked. If members of the public have questions, they can submit them online. I believe it's on the, if you could, the budget materials there on the left. There's 4 links. One is the second item down, government. Oh, first one. Let's do budget materials for 500, please. Oh, not that one. Current budget, I can't see it all that well on. That second one, please. So this one has, it kind of explains sort of our process. Phase 1, Phase 2 is budget development, Phase 3, budget presentations. This is where you can find links to all of the presentations you saw last week, this week, and you'll see all the future ones. Can you keep scrolling down for me, Ryan, please? So you can see the recommended budget materials, including Glennis has had some updates related to that. Including the link to the mill rate calculator, which now includes, you can manipulate the assumptions about assessed value increases, can be done in that as well. And in Phase 4 is a lot of, this is where the PowerPoint presentations for each of tonight's presentations, as well as the previous ones, and all the future ones will be here. I did include, there was another question last week, a counselor had asked about the creation of the facilities manager and the expectation that this position could find enough savings to cover the cost of its position. So I've included a link in the admin update that I sent you. There's a link there just underneath the Public Works Department that you can go and look at to see the list of items that have been identified. So as we continue to make updates to the budget, our finance director is adding the information in memo format, and that's in Phase 3, budget presentation, and further updating the mill rate calculator with those items for council consideration. So at the end of the process, we can begin to look at those. The recommended budget is the budget that has been submitted. So any further changes or amendments are completely at the majority vote of the council. So just some basic updates. Any questions about this budget process and how we're doing and anything that we should modify?
Councilor Copeland?
Not a question, just praise. You guys have done a fantastic job. It's very transparent for our community and very understandable for us. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Any other questions to my right, to my left?
Okay, I'm going to touch on some things that are going on this year that we need to the council needs to be aware of and likely make some decisions on. So recycling inspections, I know that Pat had sent some information, Patrick Fox, our Director of Public Works. 6 Public Works employees were trained last week by Eco Main staff as to what to look for that's affecting our contamination rates and fees at their facility. This week, starting today, our employees will be inspecting every household's curbside container for items that should not be in the recycling bin. A supervisor will be monitoring their tagging protocols throughout each day to ensure we are not being too picky or too lenient. And DPW staff recognizes there's a fine line between increasing awareness and compliance and making a large number of our residents upset. So after our first day of inspection, there were 131 containers that were tagged. The offenses range from trash being in the recycle bin, food, liquids, cords, hangers, waste, yard waste, plastic bags, clothing, large bulky items that are not recyclable. Unfortunately, there was no construction debris in any of them, which was good. And then another category, other, and there were 16 of those. So it's a broad range of items, and we're hope that the public will start to recognize this. So in case there are residents wondering now, what am I supposed to do? So the city checked a box on the tag telling you why your recycling container is not picked up. You may remove the items that are not recyclable and dispose of those properly, and the remainder of your recycling will be collected next week. If you do not have room in your recycling or trash container due to being tagged this week, you may bring a bagged trash or properly sorted recycling items to the transfer station for disposal. They're open Tuesday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. Household bagged trash will cost $3 per bag for disposal. Public Works will be continuing random inspections until the current contamination rates, 15%, and costs, which equates to about $6,000 per month, drop to acceptable levels. The city is tracking addresses that have repeated contamination issues and will increase outreach and inspection with those individuals until acceptable levels are met. This is not an issue or a tagging process that is unique to Saco. It is happening regionally and across the country due to changes in the worldwide recycling market and the amount of trash that is being shipped to other countries from the U.S. recycling programs. So thank you for the council's support that we've gotten while trying to deal with these sudden market issues that have developed over decades. We do not expect this will change everyone's behavior overnight, but we do believe the majority of our community will respect the efforts we're making to save the overall budget. Public Works
Kevin.
Yep. We can address each.
Councilor Smart?
Do you have a rough estimate of how many containers we have in the city? Just trying to get about a percentage that were actually tagged.
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay, we can follow up
I
later.
can, yep.
Thanks.
Ready here now? Well, that's just sewer, so 5,300 sewer accounts. So probably double that, but I'll work with
Oh, yeah,
Patrick.
no,
again.
it's certainly a five-digit number.
So
The number of households.
the next item I have is Public Works, the crew cab. It's scheduled to be replaced as part of FY20. So our Director of Public Works mentioned the challenge related to the crew cab transport vehicle during the budget workshop last week. Since then, he's provided me, there's a memo that I've included as part of this packet, and again, all this will be online by tomorrow. The vehicle blew a head gasket, repairs that would total nearly $13,000. So it doesn't make good financial sense to repair for its 3 months of remaining useful life, as it is scheduled for replacement in the capital plan. So in this case, administration would normally look to the emergency purchase exception in the purchasing policy under regulations governing purchases, page 11 and 12, to justify an approval and include the attached memo for council review to meet policy requirements. But as this is a lease purchase, the lease purchase will require council approval. So our next council meeting is not until April 29th, and the dealer is willing to hold on to the crew cab until that meeting to confirm approval. So I'll ask that this item be discussed during one of the other budget workshops and count towards our typical practice of workshopping an item before it goes to vote, or ask the council to waive an additional workshop on this item, and we'll bring all the appropriate information to the floor on the 29th. But I believe Pat's memo really does help explain the situation and his justification for asking for this. Dog park expansion for small dogs. Council is responsible for making decisions about the use of city property, as we've discussed in the last few weeks. Parks and Recreation has been working with Friends of the Dog Park to consider an extension of the existing park and create a safe space for smaller dogs. This enclosure would be a 30 by 30 addition to the north end of the current fenced area and would include a 5-foot wide sidewalk. The proposal is going before the Historic Preservation Commission this Wednesday, And following their recommendation approval, I'll need to acquire that, and I would like to get an approval from council to do this project on the 29th of April, so we can get this in the ground in May. I've asked Ryan Summer, Director of Parks and Rec, to bring this up after his budget presentation so we can move it to the 29th vote. Guess we forgot to do that, but oh well.
Oh, excuse me, Councilor Copeland.
Mr. Sutherland, I thought that one of the residents, a very generous resident in Ward 4, has paid for this.
Yes, but again, when we make modifications to our city properties, I believe that the council needs to make a vote on that.
Okay.
It's
But
just a matter of...
It's not a funding issue, it's
not a
already been
funding
funding.
Nope, it's not a funding issue.
Thank
It's
you.
are you supportive of this as the council? I mean, this comes back to the school wanting to put a modular on school property, on city property. The council should make the decision about what we do with city property.
Any other
That's my
questions to this
interpretation of
point?
the charter,
All right.
so.
Take it away, Mr. Sutherland.
You want to touch on that dog park thing?
So correct, it's paid for, so really what you have is a 30 by 30 with a double gate, just like you have on the big dog park, you have it on the small dog park as well. And then to bring us back into compliance with what the agreement was with the Historical Society, when the original dog park was put in, we will be adding some bushes along the fence line. There'll be arborvitaes, or a couple others that would be low line and stuff like that, but it would visually push the fence back. So we will bring all the things back up to what was agreed upon when this originally went through the HPC Society. So yes, this Wednesday I will be presenting to them.
So, any questions to my right? Any questions to my left? My question is, what's the largest size in the small dog park? You must have some sort of limit, right?
That would be something that would be determined,
We'll
but my
figure
guess
that
would
out
be,
later.
it would
Thank
probably
you.
be 10 pounds and under.
Mr. Sutherland, anything else?
Yes, I have a couple of additional items. I'm sorry, there's just a lot coming at us, and because we're not having our regular meetings, I can't necessarily address all of these items during those. So, truck wash, we allocated $325,000 in 2017 to partially fund an automated truck wash. The intent was to partner with a regional partnership or find some other alternative funding sources to secure this need to wash our vehicles, including our school buses. So following the budget allocation, preliminary research and cost estimates showed that a standalone regional wash facility would cost approximately $1.2 million to build. There's not a lot of interest from surrounding communities to pay for constructing a facility in another community. You know, Biddeford is not going to want to drive their equipment over to Saco to get washed and then drive it back. Likewise, any of the other surrounding communities. And we really didn't want to be driving our vehicles over to another community to be washed on a weekly basis. I know that sounds like it'd be a great regional opportunity, but nobody wants to play that game. So we did work with a business who is building a construction facility in the Industrial Park Road, A. Dewey Pile. We did discuss them building a facility and us utilizing it. However, one of the challenges we're faced with is the heavy use of our trucks and the silt and sand getting into their system. So our concern then shifted from, well, could an addition be added to our new facility that we're building to accommodate this? And the price point at which Pat has been able to negotiate puts us at about $215,000 of that $325,000 to be added to build this bay. So again, in the spirit of what we're trying to do, and still maybe be able to work with A. Dewey Pile putting the buses through their facility, because that's more in line with the type of equipment that they're putting through their facility, and we'll look to work with A. Dewey Pile to come up with a proper price point to do so. I guess the important point to talk about tonight, sorry, I'm trying to move through these quickly. It's a time-sensitive item, so in which I'll need to get council direction. The $325,000 for a shared wash bay currently resides in the capital plan as an earmarked project. but we'd ask council for permission to move 215 of this over to the Public Works Facility project. As this is a project-level discussion, not a movement from one department to another, it doesn't require a budget amendment, but because the intent of the resources has changed, a shared approach to strictly part of a public works facility, and the size of the dollar amount, I would ask council to provide their input and vote on this matter at a future meeting. Timeline to include as part of the building design may require this to be voted on by the 29th as well. So it's just another item that we're going to have to look to address. And I did get an email from Pat, and what's in your memo that I gave you gives more detail, but I just wanted to try to whittle it down so we could quickly talk about this tonight or at a future budget meeting.
Mhm.
So I'll stop there for a sec so we can, if
Oh, any questions now? Yes, Councilor Mentor.
Since the meeting next week is scheduled on Tuesday,
Yes.
why can't we just have a meeting to cover these couple items?
We
As
can. I was-
15, 20 minutes, we'd be done.
No, I was actually just looking at that, looking at the four departments
Yeah.
for Tuesday. They look to me as if they're fairly straightforward. People are very solicitous of the city clerk's budget presentation. The assessor's budgetation also isn't particularly complicated, and, so I think it's got fire department in there, but that's something I was going to speak with the city administrator regarding this coming Wednesday, to make this a part of the workshop, and if he's got a really long administrative update, that he actually try to put it in paper, or not on paper, but electronically, and distribute that, and just hit the high points.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna,
no, I agree with you. I think that's absolutely right. Any-
for the truck for DPW,
Yeah.
we ought to be able to cover that next Tuesday. This
Yep.
with the truck wash ought to be
Exactly.
able to be covered in 20 or 30 minutes. We ought to have
Right.
them both done, and maybe some other little items as well.
That's right.
Okay.
So any other questions to my left? Anything to my right? Comments, questions to my right? Mrs. Sutherland, you want to continue?
two more.
Only two.
Only two. Traffic light at Flag Pond Road. We've applied for a grant through the Business Partnership Initiative, in which the Maine DOT would assist in helping to cover the cost of this, in addition to Hancock Lumber. So we're looking forward to Hancock Lumber beginning construction soon, adding new development to Route 1, Cascade Road, Flag Pond area. So during the process of land purchase, the city, Hancock Lumber, and Maine Department of Transportation had initial conversations about the need for traffic signal and intersection improvements at Flag Pond Road. Maine DOT brought to the city's attention the opportunity to apply for a three-way match funding in a program called Business Partnership Initiative, BPI, with Hancock's access egress into their site aligned at the Flag Pond intersection. So, and part of that discussion also involves the Stevenson's parcel, so whoever does end up owning that property or any kind of development that happens there would be tied into that light intersection. So the timing of all of this is working out really well. We've received the funding from Maine DOT in the amount of $160,000 toward an estimated project cost of $480,000. The city share of that would be up to $160,000, depending on how much it's spent or how much it actually costs, and those resources would come from the Park North TIF. So this would not impact the general fund in any way. And Hancock would be responsible for $160,000 or more if the project exceeds the $480,000. We haven't budgeted for this as part of the FY19, and we do not have policies in place to require council approval to expend from the TIF, other than what's in our purchasing policy. So for this year, I'd like to make sure the council is aware of and supports this issue or this item, and to strengthen the relationship of council understanding and input for budgeted TIF expenditures. We've included, and I talked about this at the beginning of the meeting tonight, expected expenditures as part of this year's budget process, and we'll always do that going forward. The plans for fiscal year 20 will be reviewed by council during planning and development budget presentation.
Okay, Councilor Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think the growth of Hancock Lumber up at that area is great. However, adding an additional traffic signal when you have a traffic signal already at Cascade Road and Route 1 is only going to cause more problems with the Route 1 corridor all the way down through our community. If you go out and talk to folks, they'll tell you that there's a traffic problem already with trying to get from Ocean Park Road down through all the lights and through the community. So if we start doing that the other way, because if you remember, there's also talk about a traffic signal up by Cascade Falls off of Route 1. You're now going to put more traffic signals Route 1 and cause the same kind of chaos that's happening from Ocean Park Road south to now Ocean Park Road north. So, I think there's before we add more and more traffic signals, we should really look at that. I don't know that there needs to be a traffic signal at Flag Pond Road and Route 1, when Cascade Road and Route 1 is a very short distance away from that. That's going to cause a significant backup. There's still access off of Cascade Road into the backside of, down by Monkey Trunks and such. There's access to get into Hancock Lumber off of that road where the new gym is. So theoretically, if you had an egress and off of Route 1, you could just do a turn in and then a turn out. You don't need another traffic signal there, and you could divert any other traffic down that road and have it come out of Cascade Road. There's no reason to put another traffic signal that close to Cascade Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions to my right? Councilor to my left, Councilor Minthorn, please.
Kevin, what's the status? I know, didn't PAX do a grant for Saco and Biddeford to tie all the traffic lights together on one?
Yes.
So this would actually be tagged on at the head end of that if it was installed, would it not? Because the first light that was in that group was Cascade Road.
The full study goes all the way up to Dunstan's Corner in Scarborough.
Yeah.
So to be clear, the decision to put the light in is totally on the DOT. We have no control over making that determination. It's all based on traffic count and number of accidents.
Yep.
And again, when Denise or Emily are here, we can talk, when they're talking about their budget, we can delve into this a little more. But the issue really is just about the funding mechanism and how do we support getting this done as a requirement of this project being put in by the state. So, oh yeah, no, I mean there's a threshold at which they say this project is going to create enough traffic where it requires the city to, or the funder to put this traffic light in.
Councilor Doyle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So why don't we, and I'm just thinking out loud, I don't want to blow up any projects or anything, but why not just divert all traffic to the new Hancock Lumber area off of Cascade Road in the backside of the gym?
Well, they intend to have that connect.
Right, but why have any access directly off of Route 1 if it's going to create this issue where you have a traffic signal
Right, back-to-back
less than a
traffic
football
signals.
yard
So if you've got a bypass that cuts the Cascade Road access to Route 1 and makes the new Cascade Road access across the street from Flag Pond, that means one traffic light to handle a four-way intersection instead of two traffic lights handling two three-way intersections. I think that's all you're saying, and that's beyond our conversation at this point.
Correct.
I think
I
he's
can't
just
answer
trying
any
to
of those.
point that
Sure.
there's those alternatives. So let me just say, any additional comments or questions? To my right, any to my left? Thank you very much. So please continue.
Last one,
Yes.
and this is more of the fun one. So aside from today's snow and freezing rain, Saturday, April 6th gave us all a glimpse of how a beautiful spring day can awaken this community. The fire station held their annual open house. Saco Middle School hosted their Berry Fun Day. And the community center sponsored the 8th annual Southern Maine Gearbots event. So There were a lot of happy children at all 3 events, and I think a few of them made it to all of them, and I know a select few even stopped over at the Scoop for some ice cream afterwards. So I want to thank all the staff and volunteers who participated to make it one of the busiest Saturdays Saco has ever seen, and hopefully it's a testament of what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll talk on Wednesday about the
Fitting in
structure
all
of the
these other
meeting on the
things.
16th and how long the admin update will be. So, rushing right along, council comments. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand at the Wednesday meetings, when you work on these agendas and so forth, that you have it played out through the whole summer? Do you have?
No, but we do go a couple of weeks ahead.
They're at the end of May right now.
I don't think we're actually
So
at the end of May. We're through the end of April right now.
I just would appreciate heads up. Why not just share even the draft?
Okay, as long as
council.
you understand, we're talking about a draft.
I
because
understand the word draft.
Already, next Tuesday's meeting
Understand.
is very different than what's written down there right now.
I
So,
understand.
Mr. Sutherland.
Yeah, and Ryan talked about utilization of SharePoint, and this is one of those areas where I think this is going to be very beneficial, is having some of these items at least dropped in there for council review. Even though it's a draft version, you have an idea of what's to come. Because as we're not addressing things this month, because we're trying to focus on budget, a lot of it is going to be front-ended in end of May, like May 20th, May 27th, whatever those dates are. After the budget stuff is done, we're going to have a lot of things we're going to have to address. If you guys know about it and can start to review some of the material, I'm trying to utilize SharePoint and figure out how to make that available for everybody, so.
Thank you. That would be very appreciated.
Hopefully in the next week or two.
Okay, Councilwoman Thorne.
Yeah, I just want to thank Chief DeRoss for an awesome open house on Saturday. We were over there for the 3rd year in a row, and I know Councilor Smart appeared in some pictures, and Councilor Johnston's children appeared in some pictures. And yeah, it was a great time. Doyle was there causing trouble with me, and we had a great time.
Yes, we thank you, Chief DeRoss. Any other comments to my left? Any to my right? Without objection, I declare this meeting adjourned.